Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Kelly Green Hour as the week has finally come to where the 2024 NFL schedule has been released. And the Eagles have a pretty fun schedule, I think, and we are going to dive deep into it and give our predictions to each game as, everybody does once the schedule comes out. I'm your host, LG Harrell, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Connor Donald. Connor, it's been a minute, but I'm glad that we're back, and we're getting into that point where we might start being able to do weekly shows again. No news. We always say no news is good news in the off season, especially for the Eagles. Like we don't want any of that craziness, but I'm getting geared up, getting ready to get back into the swing of things.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we got through the lull. If you're big on the draft, you're obviously we could have done a lot more shows, but we only do those couple of mock draft shows and stuff, and talk needs a bit for the Eagles and stuff. But I mean, it is getting to that time that once the camps start ramping back up again, we'll be able to talk a lot more, get into the roster battle discussions because there's definitely going to be a couple of those roster battle discussions to have, especially when you have a defensive back room of about 20 people. That definitely makes things a lot more interesting. But I mean, yeah, I mean, like you said, this schedule plays out. I mean, based on Vegas's projected win totals, we have the easiest schedule in the NFCs. So depends how you like to finesse the strength of schedule, because some people will go by last year's win percentage, which I don't really like because teams, go through an entire offseason, a lot changes. So this seems like the safest bet to kind of talk about it is based on Vegas's projected wins for teams. So based on that, we have the easiest schedule. But when you sleep on an Eagles schedule, well, bad things can happen. So
Remember, last year the Eagles had the toughest schedule going into the league or going into the year, and we talked about that stretch when Dallas and Kansas City and Buffalo, and it looked like it was going to be daunting. And the Eagles had won up to that point; they won all those games, getting to 10-1 before it went downhill. But we won't talk about that right now. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to jumping in. But first, as always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LJ Harrell54. Follow Edge of Philly Sports on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook at Edge of Philly Sports. And if you're tuning in live, let us know your thoughts on the schedule, your favorite game, the toughest stretch. If there's a road game that you're going to go to, I have one. Tickets will be bought soon. I'm going to the Baltimore game against the Ravens in Baltimore the day before my birthday. Me and my pops are going to go since I won't be able to make it to Dallas, unfortunately, this year because of scheduling conflict. But definitely going to make it out to a road game. Might go to Eagles Dallas on December 29th in Philly. That will be fun if I'm able to do that. But yeah, let us know your thoughts on the Eagles schedule. So Connor, let's bring it up real quick. Let's bring up the schedule. And the first thing that jumps out to me, a week 5 bye. Mm-hmm. Man, that's such an early bye. I mean, I like the middle of the season, obviously, kind of split the season up in half, but having that week 5 bye is going to be brutal, I think. Especially when you get into that stretch of games towards the end. You got Dallas, Washington. We can start with, here we go. Cincinnati, Jacksonville should be improved. Dallas, Washington will probably be a little bit improved. The Rams should be improved. Baltimore is good. Carolina, I mean, I don't think Carolina's going to be good. But then Pittsburgh, Washington, Dallas. Like, I would have loved to have the bye later, but that week 5 bye is something that jumped out at me when I first saw the schedule.
Yeah, definitely. It jumped out to me too because we always see we seem to be a team that has had good luck with health, but there are some seasons where the bad luck bug bites for injuries, and if there's going to be a season where that feels like it might happen again, and I don't want it. I'm not wishing anything here, but it could likely be a year where you have the bye early, and then you got to give it your all for. I mean, what is that? 3, 6, 9, 12 for 13 weeks without any real break. I mean, the bright side is we don't have as many short weeks as we had last year, where it seemed like the schedule makers were not playing to the Eagles' favor whatsoever with some of the short weeks we had. But I mean, the fact that you got to go 13 straight weeks and you got to give it your all and you got to get to the playoffs and then the playoffs. I mean, this will be a year that I will really want to land one of those bye week, or will want to land that bye week in the 1st round, because they're definitely going to need it. So it helps to have, ninth easiest schedule in the league. It would be nice if we could take advantage of that. But, the sour taste of what happened last year is probably still sitting in our mouths, despite, the coaching changes and some of the changes that have happened. But yeah, that bye week stuck out like a sore thumb, especially in this one, this one was the schedule as shared by the Philadelphia Eagles social medias, where the bye week is planted literally right in your face.
Yeah. And the other thing that jumped out to me is after week 12, after that Rams game, the Eagles don't get on a plane. They take the train to Baltimore. Then they're home against Carolina and Pittsburgh. You take the train to DC, home against Dallas and the Giants. No planes. And if they can get the number 1 seed, you don't get on a plane until potentially the Super Bowl, which is in New Orleans. So, like, not having to get on a plane after Thanksgiving, or after Thanksgiving, pretty much, like that's big, and that could help. Traveling sucks. Let's be real. I mean, they got to go to Brazil. That's going to be it's a 13-hour plane ride, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So that'll suck. But towards the end of the season, when we talked about not having the bye since week 5, being able to take a train, sleeping in your own bed a lot longer, like that, I think that'll come in handy for the Eagles.
Yeah, and I think the blessing with the Brazil game that the teams going to Europe don't have as a luxury is it's week 1. You can probably head down a few days early. You haven't played a football game yet. You can kind of get the jet lag out of the way. And then on the way back, you obviously got the favor of we're playing the Monday night game versus having to play on Sunday, and getting that extra day of rest and getting your feet back under you. And while like the 13-hour plane ride sounds bad, I don't think the time zone difference is as bad as exactly. So it's definitely not as bad as the European teams who have to pretty much go, forwards or backwards. I can't remember, like a good 8 hours or 9 hours. It's a significant chunk of time. Although most of them do get the bye on the way back. It is, I mean, I think I prefer the trip to Brazil over the trip over to Europe for some of those, because that jet lag burns you, and some of those games over in Europe end up being really bad games because the jet lag's there, the teams just aren't used to it, and it changes a whole lot. So I mean, I think that's kind of the blessing in the Brazil game, and how they decide to travel we'll see as the season approaches. But yeah, your thought about not getting on a plane as the season wraps up is definitely a well noted thing as well, because I mean, we know getting on the plane, I think there was a couple times, I think it was last year, where we went out west, flew back east, went back out west, and we traveled a ton of miles last year. And I think we're traveling the 8th most miles this year. But I think last year we traveled even more miles than that. So it's good to not have to do that. And obviously the players like that. You get, like you said, you get to stay closer to home. The practicing is easier and stuff. So that's a good thing as well. So that'll be the schedule makers did the Eagles a little bit more justice this year than last year, and I think they definitely had to do that.
I agree with that.
The NFL doesn't have to do anything, but I mean, the least you can do is help. If you're going to plan the majority of the Chiefs' schedule around Taylor Swift, you can give the Eagles a break this year after what happened last year.
Yeah, the NFL, they admitted to creating the Chiefs schedule around Taylor, so she'll miss like 3 games. She'll be able to go to 14 games if she wants to, as long as her and Travis Kelce are together. The Eagles also do not play a team coming off of a bye this year, so that's big. That's different, because last year I think they played 4 or 5 teams coming off of a bye, so that was a huge a disadvantage for the Eagles. So let's jump into it. I kind of, before we give our predictions, we'll do that. I think I wanted, like, it was easier when it was 16 games. Let's do it in quarters at 4-4-4. So we'll do 4-4-4, 4-4-4, and 5. So we'll start with, that Brazil game, and then the Eagles have their true home opener, even though Brazil, which I hate that they took a home game away from the Eagles. Like, their fan base, Jacksonville, yes, they deserve to be home games taken away. Like, if there's a fan base that doesn't deserve to lose a home game, it's the Eagles. Like, what the Philadelphia fan base did for Major League Baseball when the Phillies made their run to the World Series 2 years ago, like, the Eagles are the same way. The fact that season ticket holders are pretty much getting screwed out of a home game, and still being charged for 9 home games, by the way. Yeah, that's not cool. So, but going over to Brazil, and that I think is going to be the toughest game up until the Browns game. So the first 4 weeks, that Green Bay game is the toughest. So we'll know what the Eagles are all about right away.
Yeah, and I mean, I have a hard time believing that we're going to know what the Eagles are about because, they're not going to play a lot of the starters in the preseason. They're still going to go with that same thing. Then you have to do the 13-hour trip down to Brazil, play on turf, a surface I think it's a turf surface down there. I don't know if it's real grass. If it's grass, good. If it's turf, who knows? But you don't really get the true feel in week 1. And then the fact that it's a travel game like this makes it so that I feel like week 1 can go either way. And it's one of the games I had a tougher time predicting because I actually do think Green Bay's pretty good. I think they're improved over last year and they were a pretty good team last year. So it'll be interesting to see what Green Bay is like, but it definitely is the easiest of the first 4 games when looking at them. I think Tampa Bay I think is worse. Atlanta, I think is worse. I think you improved the quarterback position, but I really generally believe they had one of the worst drafts. They had a pretty weak free agency. They think they're ready to go and make the playoffs and be a contender when they are pretty much hanging around 9-8 every single season. So I don't know what gave them the impression that they were ready to do. And the Michael Penix pick, I guess, was, the thing that still looms large over them because that was your chance to prove, okay, I don't want to be 9-8 again. I want to be a standout team. And you kind of just positioned yourself to be a 9-8 team again. And then the New Orleans Saints, I mean, that's just a team that's been in cap hell, trying to get out of cap hell and can't really do anything. Hasn't been really able to do anything except open up cap space each and every year and hope that their team gets better with the minimal moves that they're able to make.
They wish they had Howie Roseman.
They need somebody bad to get in there and clean it up. But I mean, obviously, even if Howie Roseman got in there, you'd be a couple years away because those contracts are terrible. And then the way they're kicking the can down the road is just brutal. But so I definitely agree with you. Green Bay is definitely going to be the hardest game. And you got the travel factor. You got the factor that Green Bay is a pretty good team. But then the next 3 games are much more friendly games.
Well,
but they do have heavier travel because you got to go down to New Orleans and then you're probably going back home and then you get back on the plane and fly down to Tampa.
Yeah, and it's a short week going into that New Orleans game. And the Eagles have not won in New Orleans since I think 2006 or 2007. So it's been a long time. That it's the 3rd straight year that the Eagles are going to be facing a Kirk Cousins led team in week 2 on a primetime game. They did it. Was it 2 Thursday nights in a row, or was it a Monday night or Thursday night last year? I know it was Thursday last year. I don't remember what it was 2 years ago. I think it was Monday. I don't remember. But so the Falcon had, and again, they have good offensive weapons. We'll see. New coaching staff. The Eagles have a lot of offensive weapons too. That could be a high scoring game. And the Saints, you never know. And again, like I mentioned, the Eagles haven't won in New Orleans since 2006, 2007. So, I mean, always
New Orleans is, I was going to say, New Orleans is a tough environment. It's the environment that can get under the skin of some teams. So we know because when people come to the link, it definitely gets under a lot of their skins to come and play Philly at the link.
Yeah. And then Tampa, again, this is be the 3rd straight year the Eagles have had to go to Tampa. They went 2 times last year, one in the regular season, lost in the playoffs. They went in the playoffs 2 years ago. Or no, they hosted 3 years ago they went into the playoffs. That was the first year of Sirianni. 2 years ago, I don't remember if we played the Bucs, but last year we did play them twice in Tampa. 1-1, lost 1. And then that bye, around that bye, and I think the week 5 bye. Now the Eagles aren't a team that fires coaches. In the middle of the season. Obviously, Chip Kelly getting fired after week 16 in 2015. Notwithstanding. But, if the Eagles are 1-3, 0-4, Sirianni could be gone in that bye week. He could be gone. So maybe it could be good that the bye week is there, depending on how the Eagles start out. We never know.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that.
So, hey, Mr. Crockpot, how you doing? Good evening, gentlemen. Low-key, very much excited for the Bucs game. That's going to be a great test with more Hurts handling the blitz. Yes. because we know what that defensive staff likes to do against Jalen Hurts. We know what they said about Jalen Hurts. So that'll be intriguing to see what the Eagles' new look offense is all about when they have to go to Tampa in week 4. But they're going to be Green Bay's got a good defense. The Saints defense has some pieces. The Falcons, I mean, I know they have AJ Terrell. I think the Eagles should be able to score on them, but we're going to again go through these in quarters real quick, and then we're going to come back and give our predictions. So the next 4, the Eagles after the bye, they host the Cleveland Browns. That should be a really good game. Really good defensive team. Rodney McLeod in his final year, he's going to be coming back to the link. Jim Schwartz coming back to the link. Do they have somebody? I think they have somebody else that used to be an Eagle over there. And then Deshaun Watson leading Amari Cooper. Kareem Hunt. We'll see if who's the running back that really hurt his knee.
Nick Chubb.
Nick Chubb, thank you. See how he is. They have a lot of weapons. The Giants, Saquon's return to MetLife in Jersey, October 20th. Saquon, he's probably going to have a big game. I think the Bengals should be a really good game, especially if Joe Burrow is healthy. And then the Jaguars, Dougie P coming back to Philly again for the second time in 3 years. Should be another one on Sunday Night Football. That's a stretch right there. The Eagles could potentially go 2-2, maybe 3-1 if they have some stuff fall their way.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at the schedule, I feel like this is there's no gauntlet, but I mean, if you were going to compare a portion of the schedule to a gauntlet, this would definitely be the one. And the only reason is that the only reason it's not really much of a gauntlet is because the Giants are standing there right in the middle. And the Jaguars, we really don't know what the Jaguars are going to be. I mean, so far, Trevor Lawrence has been good, but not great. He hasn't been, the generational talent that he was touted. And I mean, some argue the offense is better. I don't know if it's better. I've never been a big Gabe Davis fan. I wasn't a huge Calvin Ridley fan, but Calvin Ridley does more for a team than I think Gabe Davis does. So, I mean, you're probably back to leaning on, Christian Kirk as your number one wide receiver, unless Brian Thomas can hop out for the one that they drafted there. And then otherwise it's Trevor Lawrence, it's Travis Etienne. It's very similar pieces that we've come to see the last couple of years for the Jaguars. So it's tough to tell there. You kind of know what the Browns are, but you kind of don't as well, because they haven't really gotten all that they thought they were getting out of Deshaun Watson yet due to, suspensions and injuries. He hasn't played as much as obviously they want a fully guaranteed contracted quarterback to play. But they definitely have a very good defense. They definitely have some very good weapons that are going to be around Deshaun Watson. So they're going to be a tough team to play. Bengals definitely are going to be a tough team to play. Joe Burrow. I think T. Higgins will be there and Jamar Chase will be there. It just doesn't do you. We've learned from past experience, it doesn't do you justice to sit out a year in the NFL. You got to play or hope that, you can come to some amicable way to part ways and have a trade happen. But I mean, even without that, Jamar Chase is there, and that obviously is obviously a great player. Joe Burrow is a very good quarterback. Their defense is solid, so they do have an intriguing stretch there. The Giants, we should be able to win, but divisional games, you never want to rule it out. And MetLife Stadium in that field, you never want to rule anything out. Mm-hmm. I fear greatly for Saquon Barkley's return to New York in that game, having to be.
At least he only had to play there once.
Exactly. No, we don't got the Jets this year, so it's definitely an intriguing stretch. And like you said, this is a stretch that you can easily you want to come out at least 2-2, but it could be a stretch where you can definitely see it maybe going 1-3, and a decent start could sour a little bit. But there's so much season still to go after this, because you get the bye out of the bye's gone early, and you got a long stretch to run with these next 13 games.
Yeah, and I didn't even go and look and see who each team plays before and after they play the Eagles, because that definitely has an impact too on, are you playing on a short week? Are you playing a division rival? So that's something that could definitely take effect. Let's go to the next 4. The big game, for the first time since 2006, the Eagles and Cowboys are not playing in prime time this year. It's been 18 years, which is crazy. At least one game. the Eagles and Cowboys plays in prime time. I don't think Week 10 is a flexible game. Week 17 could potentially be a flexible game, or Week 17 in Philly.
Yeah.
So I mean, still the chance. But that game Week 10, the Eagles and Cowboys typically split. They each win at home. We'll see how Dallas is this year. They made that all-in statement and really haven't gone all in. Washington should be better, you think? I don't know how Jaden Daniels is going to do. I'm iffy on him, but he's better than Sam Howell, I think. And Sam Howell torched us twice last year. So that should be interesting under Dan Quinn.
And one of the biggest impacts of Sam Howell was his legs, and he wasn't a runner. Jaden Daniels is a runner.
Yes, he is. And they have a bunch of weapons over there. Brian Johnson also on the coaching staff. Cliff Kingsbury is the I think it's Cliff Kingsbury is the offensive coordinator for Washington. So that, and they made a bunch of moves. I think they made the most moves in the league in free agency. So that'll be a different team over there. They have Bobby Wagner leading the defense. The Rams again have to go out to LA. Eagles fans are going to travel out there. Should be a tough game. Back-to-back road games here with the Rams and the Ravens. That'll be a tough stretch. And the Ravens game is December 1st. I am probably going to be out there at that game. I'm looking forward to it. Should be a lot of fun going to their stadium and seeing Lamar Jackson and that offense in person. But yeah, this 4-game stretch, I think if they can go 2-2, it'd be good. 2-2, 3-1. But definitely tough games. Obviously, the division games and that Ravens team is really good with MVP Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at it, you're looking at like a string of 8 games, and obviously in a string of 8 games like that, if you can come out 3-1 and then maybe go 4-4, I'm talking that string of 8 games there. If you start 3-1 and then you can go 4-4, 5-3, things are going to look healthy for you. But if you end up on the wrong side of 500 in that stretch of first 8 games after the bye, the easiness of the remaining schedule may not be, all that enticing, because you're going to have to play your heart out and you're really going to have to win every one of those remaining 5 games. So you really want to come out of this stretch 5-3, 6-2 would be really nice if you could kind of get out 3-1, 2-2, and then go 6-2. That would be a really nice start to the season. I mean, I'm a bit less of the, I know some people are already at 15 and 14-3, 15-2 predictions. I'm not there yet. I'm in a similar spot that I was last year. And that could be just because of last year. And it is a new coaching staff. So, I mean, you can't expect that, week 1, the first couple weeks, they're going to come right out and they're all going to be perfect in the offense, perfect in the defense. We know that, the defense is going to be a lot more intricate. There's going to be a lot more to it. It's not just going to be this simple defense that we were kind of getting used to seeing last year. It's going to be a lot different with Vic Fangio calling the plays there. So it might take the defense a few weeks to get their feet under them as well. And then we don't know what a Kellen Moore offense looks like, but hell, we know that it's got to look a lot better than a Brian Johnson offense looked like last year. So, but that would be more intricate too. So
I want to say that that's true, but Dak got better when Kellen Moore left. Herbert got worse when Kellen Moore came on. So that worries me a little bit.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, what's going to happen. And I mean, I on the bright side, I think that, Kellen Moore is probably going to be working with one of the best offensive lines he's ever gotten to work with. So maybe that'll help him open up his offense a little more and unlock more of Jalen Hurts, because we definitely need to see Jalen Hurts take a step forward this year. But then, yeah, like you said, the Cowboys game, they tend to have this split. They usually split. Like you said, it's kind of funny to see what the Cowboys are saying, that they're all in, yet here they have Micah Parsons, who doesn't seem very happy. Then you got CeeDee Lamb, who wants a big contract and isn't happy. You're making Dak Prescott play in a contract year that could make or break your roster again, because if Dak Prescott goes off again,
he counts what, $50 million against the cap this year.
It's massive, but he could cost you a lot more. You're rolling the dice, and it could go either way.
I think this is Dak's last year in Dallas.
I think it is too, because I think he's going to have a good year, because as much as we hate to say it, he does well for that offense and he puts up numbers, and that's what's going to get him the paycheck at the end of the day. Somebody's going to come
Jerry
to him
Jones
just like
obviously
Kirk
doesn't.
Cousins and
Jer-
pay him.
Jerry Jones obviously doesn't want him. Let's put it that way.
That's kind of that's kind of what it feels like.
And
but
it's a good thing how he got Devontae and AJ Brown locked up. You know, CeeDee Lamb is going to blow past. Justin Jefferson is going to blow past it. Jamar Chase is going to blow past their contracts. So like
T. Higgins is likely going to do it too. Like it's crazy.
Which is crazy because T. Higgins is not better than AJ Brown or Devontae Smith.
I completely agree. But you just know that the wide receiver market completely got reset, and how he did those two moves were the best moves at the most opportune times this offseason. Those are like two of the A+ moves, and probably moves that, you look at the draft class, you look at the free agency, you look at the coaching hires, they may fly under the radar as probably going to go down as the two best moves, because you kept two of your cornerstone wide receiver pieces before there's bound to be a $40 million wide receiver. You got these guys at a bargain.
And as we always say, the cap's going to go up, so they're going to look really, really cheap in a couple of years. That Rams game should be interesting. No Aaron Donald, and Aaron Donald didn't have a sack against the Eagles, one of two teams he didn't have a sack against in his career. He even talked about like he always got double and triple teamed, and he would always talk to Kelsey like, "Dude, why are you double teaming me? Why are you triple teaming me? Help somebody else."
And I know they took a defensive tackle, but I mean, like we knew how to stop Aaron Donald.
Verse, right?
We can do, I think so. Like we can handle a rookie. This offensive line can handle a rookie defensive tackle. Like I don't think the expectation would be that defensive tackle would come in.
I want to ask you: are you worried about the offensive line? Like you have to replace Kelsey, Hall of Fame center. Jurgens is going to go in there now. While Kelsey was 36, 37, whatever, but he was still playing at a high level, obviously an all-pro level. And then you don't know who's going to be at right guard yet. Are you worried at all about the offensive line? We know we're set at left. We know we're set at left tackle, left guard, and right tackle. But those two, center and right guard, does that bother you at all? And obviously, there's plenty of time. We know we have Stoutland, but I mean, this offense is changing. We don't know who's going to be playing at these two very important spots. Does that worry you going into the year?
I've never been of the belief that guard is as vitally important as locking down your tackles. And then
guard's not as important as tackle, but it's more important than you think it is.
Oh, I imagine it is. I agree. I imagine that, you could make the case that each of the offensive line positions are likely more important than a lot of other positions on a football team. But I mean, I think they're going to get the right guard. They brought in so much competition there. I think they're definitely going to get the best out of the right guard that they ultimately end up choosing. But the big one for me is, can Cam Jurgens really step into that spotlight, really take that? Because you're not just replacing Jason Kelce, the center. You're replacing Jason Kelce, the leader, the voice of that offensive line, the embodiment of what it is to be a Philadelphia Eagle. There's a lot that's riding on this Cam Jurgens stepping in and taking over. So right guard doesn't worry me as much as, is Cam Jurgens ready? Can he take the step? Can he be that guy that we drafted him to be? That's what's going to be really interesting to me. So I'm not maybe as concerned about right guard as I should be, but I am more concerned about center. And is the right guy there? And is the right guy going to be able to step forward and make that big step and do the things that Kelce did that helped everybody else in that offense?
I'm going to be intrigued if Jurgens makes all the calls that Kelce did, or is that going to go to Jalen now? And what are your thoughts on Mekhi Becton? Do you think there's a real? I know that he's going to worry about tackle right now, but do you think that like he might be given a legit shot at right guard?
I think if the competition isn't going the way that Stoutland and Kellen Moore and Nick Sirianni wanted to go, and they're not seeing what they want out of a Tyler Steen, out of I can't even remember all the names because there's so many that Hennessy's going to be competing there. And then there's a lot who I feel like there's this belief that Keegan is going to go make a move over to right guard, because a lot of people who are asking the question, do you think Keegan will start? I thought Keegan would be, left guard, backup left guard, shore up a spot just in case, because Landon Dickerson, he's gotten banged up here and there. But move him over. If you get a guy who can do what he did at left guard through through college and do it at right guard, then you got just another versatile piece you can move around and use if situations come up. So there's a lot of competition there. But if the competition isn't going as they want it to, you could definitely consider moving Becton in, and I could see them consider that option. I wouldn't be surprised to see, when camp comes around, that there's reports that Mekhi Becton's working the guard position. I wouldn't be surprised. I think
And they
they
love
want him to
versatility.
be exactly, and they want him to be a swing tackle. He doesn't seem to be, the world's biggest fan of left tackle. He prefers to stay at home where he was as a right tackle.
I think he was a left tackle, and he doesn't.
Yeah, it
like
was
right
left tackle, and he's not a big fan of being on the right side of the line. But I mean, you never had a coach like Jeff Stoutland and a guy who might be able to maximize you and get the most out of you. Having a swing tackle, that would be huge. And an effective swing tackle would be huge, especially when you think about Lane Johnson and how much more time he has left. And Jordan Mailata, I mean, it's not a matter of he's getting older, but he's gotten banged up periodically as well. It's always good to have that extra body who can play both sides of the line like that. But I would not be surprised to see Becton get a shot at right guard here and there.
And then quickly on the Ravens, like I mentioned, they have a high-powered offense with Lamar Jackson, Zay Flowers, Bateman. They have a lot. Their offensive line, I think they lost a couple pieces this year, so in free agency, so that should be interesting. And then the running backs, I mean, Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson coming downhill at you should be a lot of fun. With I think Incognito is their fullback, if I'm not mistaken. Or no, he's the
Ricard, I think.
Ricard, it's Pat Ricard is their fullback. So that offense, man, they can put up points in a hurry. And defensively, led by Patrick Queen. Or not Patrick, Roquan Smith. Patrick Queen left and went to the Steelers. Roquan Smith, and they have Marlon Humphrey. They have Kyle Hamilton. They don't have Clowney anymore. He left. He went to Carolina. But yeah, they have a lot of on the defensive side of the football. And I know they lost their defensive coordinator, but it's still Baltimore, and we know what they pride themselves on the defensive side of the ball. So
I agree.
That should be a really good game. Like we're talking about flexing games. Like unless I think that game's going to be on Fox, unless Fox is designating that to be a game they want to keep. Wouldn't shock me if that game potentially got flexed to Sunday night, which I would hate because if I'm going, like I want to know, especially having to work the next day. But like it should be a good matchup between the Eagles and Ravens.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like you said, the Ravens pride themselves with no matter how many pieces they lose, no matter who they lose within the coaching staff on defense, they always are able to put a really good, high-powered defense out there. And like you said, I mean, that's going to be a true testament to the front three and what they're going to be able to do against the run. Like if you want a game that's going to test,
Davis better not be dead by then.
Yeah, if you want a way to test that defensive line and how they are against the run, this is going to be the one. And I mean, it definitely sucks, like you said, because you're 8 games out of the bye at that point, and you've got the Baltimore Ravens who are going to just run that ball down your throat. That's going to be a team that's going to run the ball. They're probably going to lead San Fran always makes a run for it, but I think they're going to end up leading the league by a significant margin in average rush attempts per game. There's no way you're going to tell me they're not going to go for 35 to 40 rush attempts per game. You can definitely make that offense.
Which is weird that they didn't do it in the AFC Championship game. Why they didn't run the ball in the AFC Championship game against the Chiefs? They might have been in the Super Bowl, but I digress. All right. And the final 5 games of the season, Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers come to Philly. Dave Canales, the new head coach of Carolina, we'll see where that team is at, with the young Bryce Young. The Steelers, who have never won a game in Philadelphia, by the way, against the Eagles. That should be a good game. I love Mike Tomlin as a coach. Like if I could have any coach in the NFL, I want Mike Tomlin coaching the Eagles. If I could have anybody. Again, having to go to Washington, don't have to get on a plane, take the train down to DC, and then Dallas here a couple nights before New Year's on December 29th. And then they finish off with the Giants here. It'll be a Saturday or Sunday game. It all depends on when what the schedule looks like. But that's a stretch where you think the Eagles should go 4-1 I think 4-1 at least. 4-1 in those final 5 games.
And I mean, I don't know if you've seen this, but I've been seeing it that the Steelers have the hardest back final. Like I can't remember how many games it was, but they've won the hardest back.
At least the Niners, the Ravens, like
Oh yeah, it's an absolute, like, they start out with, I think it's 8 games, and they start out with, like, 9 that are, or no, it's 10 games. It's a 10-game stretch. They got a really friendly start to the season, and then they hit, like, the gauntlet of all gauntlets. It's one of the hardest ever. They have all their divisional games in this
Mhm.
stretch of 10 games,
Plus the
plus
Eagles and the
plus
Chiefs.
the Eagles, plus the Chiefs. And somebody was saying there's never been a schedule where you play all your divisional games in the final, like, 8 weeks or 9 weeks of a season. They've never had the two teams that played in prior year prior Super Bowls at this point in a schedule as well. It's just an absolutely monumental task that they're going to be. So they're going to be running through a gauntlet, and we're going to be catching them near the end of it, and
So
that
here
may
you
be
go.
something to take advantage of.
Here you go, Connor. They host the Ravens, then at the Browns, then at the Bengals, then host the Browns, then in Philly, then at the Ravens, then host the Chiefs, and have finished with the Bengals. That is insane.
They found a new the NFL schedule makers found a new team to bully. I can tell you that it
Like
was
they
not
faced the
the
Eagles in between the Browns and the Ravens, and then they faced the Chiefs in between the Ravens and the Bengals. That is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's the one of the hardest schedules to end a seat for stretch I have ever seen. I definitely feel bad for the Steelers because I feel like you're going to get that lift at the beginning of optimism because you have one of the easiest first 7 games, and
Well, I
then
don't
you're
know. They
gonna.
have Russell, Wilson at quarterback. So,
But that's true too.
or is it going to?
That team.
Are we going to be facing Justin Fields by week 15?
you this is a team that you just don't even know. Like, that's the crazy part about it. Like, I don't even think they're that good, but no matter what, every year they're good. They're going to be 9-8, so at least they're going to be 9-8 type of good.
Right.
But can they get over the hump and be 10-7 or 11-6? I don't think so with that schedule. But yeah, so we get to face them through that gauntlet, which gives me a bit more confidence that we could be able to beat them. And they're probably, I mean, outside the Cowboys, they're the hardest team in that stretch of 5 games. I think, the Panthers are trying. They're very desperately to get better, but not doing a very good job of it. And I know new coach and everything, and they've, upgraded some weapons for Bryce Young. I still don't know if they're there anytime soon. I honestly think they're still at least a couple years out, and making some good moves. And
Well, I don't
then
know if they're going to be able to do it with that owner.
And that's the thing too, because you see, like, even when they get good guys like a Brian Burns, they sell them for peanuts and then watch a contract get given away that's going to cost them down the road when they want to go and find their edge of the future, when they want to sign a free agent edge. Brian Burns is part of the reason, part of the shift of the market there. So I mean, I definitely agree with you. I don't think it's going to be that owner that gets him over there. He's going to have to sell the team if he wants this to get better, which probably won't happen. The Commanders, I mean, the Commanders are the Commanders. I mean, like you said, they made a lot. Like, everyone was laughing at them because, oh, look at them, they got like a lot older because they brought, like, some of the names they brought in: Zach Ertz, they brought in Bobby Wagner, but then they went out and they had a pretty good draft. They addressed the need of quarterback. They did some really good things otherwise.
Did they,
Jaden Daniels is a wild card, though.
Jaden Daniels the guy? Is the question.
That's the thing. That's a huge question that they need to answer. And they put weapons around, like, I mean, you got him set. And then the Cowboys are the Cowboys. We're probably splitting. Are we going to split with us each win in the home game, or are we going to split each win in the road game? You never know, but usually it's a home game. And then the Giants, like you said,
I think this is the third straight year the Eagles have ended the season with the Giants. I went to the game 2 years ago in Philly.
I hope it doesn't matter. I mean, I honestly hope it doesn't matter. I hope that we're locked up in some way, shape, or form, whether it be the division or any type of playoff spot. I hope we're locked up so we can rest starters and give them a break, because they much will need it and deserve it by that point if we've locked down a playoff spot. And the Giants, I mean, I don't know. Like, they're clearly regretting the Daniel Jones contract. Let's be serious. Like, I think we came on the show as soon as that contract happened, and we said they're going to regret this contract. It's a terrible contract, and it wasn't even team friendly. They had to ride it out for the first 2 years fully, and then maybe in year 3 they can start to consider moving on from it. But I think they're starting to have buyer's remorse, or they thought they got a good deal on Daniel Jones, which, by the way of the quarterback market, they kind of did. But you got the good deal because of who it was and the situation. And then I think, you bring in Malik Neighbors, but you just pushed the entire load that went from Saquon Barkley being your best offensive weapon and only offensive weapon onto poor Malik Neighbors, who has to try and do it all for them as a wide receiver. I would have been a lot more confident if they kept Barkley and drafted Neighbors than I am sitting here seeing Barkley go and Neighbors come in and
give Barkley an offer. I'm actually looking forward. They're doing an off-season version of Hard Knocks now, and it's the New York Giants. So I'm intrigued to see if there's talk of the tampering that went down between the Eagles and Saquon, which there was none. So this is BS. But I'm definitely intrigued. So I'll watch it. I mean, Hard Knocks has gotten worse, I think, throughout the years, but I still watch it anyway. So that'll be interesting. All right. Now we're going to go through and give our predictions. You can give a quick blurb if you want to. I have mine written down, so I'm not going to change it depending on what you pick. So we'll start with week 1. I'll go first. Against the Packers in Brazil, I have the Eagles taking an L, unfortunately, starting the season 0-1.
I got the same as you. I got an L against Green Bay.
The Eagles come back to the States for their first true home game of the year on Monday Night Football against Kirk Cousins and the Atlanta Falcons, and I have the Eagles picking up a W and evening their record at 1-1.
Yeah, I have them getting the W, and I think it's going to be where we start to see the offense starting to come together. I think the offense could be rusty week 1, and that's likely what's going to cost us. But then I start seeing that offense starting to pull it together and chug against a defense that I don't think is all that great.
Then the first of 2 games away from the link before the bye in New Orleans. Again, the Eagles haven't won in New Orleans since I think 2006, but I have the Eagles picking up a W and beating the Derek Carr and the New Orleans Saints. They do have Alvin Kamara, who I like a lot, and they have Chris Olave. They have weapons, but I don't trust Dennis Allen as a coach. I like Lattimore in the secondary, but I just don't think that team is there yet. Obviously, they have offensive tackle issues. Hopefully, the Eagles can take advantage of. So I'm giving the Eagles the W week 3 to improve to 2-1.
Yeah, I agree on that one too. I got the Eagles taking a W against the New Orleans Saints. I don't think the Saints are all that good. Like we said, they've been in salary cap hell. They've had to rely on the draft to get better. Like the tackle issues that have come up with some brutal career-ending injury and stuff like that's tough to watch. And then obviously one of their tackle draft picks not panning out on the other side. It's tough when those types of situations come. You got to feel for Saints fans a little bit, but I mean, they got Super Bowls. They got things to be happy and proud of. But I mean, there's some tough growing pains and things to go through over the next couple of years to get out of the cap hell that they're in and be able to actually do some things in free agency that's good for the team. So yeah, I got a W there for the Eagles as well.
Week 4 against the Bucs. What's your prediction?
I got a W here too. I got us going 3-1 coming out of this stretch and feeling pretty good. But the Bucs are the ones out of these 3 that probably concerns me the most because, like Mr. Crockpot alluded to at the beginning, I mean, this could definitely be a test of, is Kellen Moore and Jalen Hurts going to be able to do better against the blitz than what we saw last year? Man, I really hope so because we had almost nothing. Like anything is an improvement over what we did against the blitz last year. It's definitely, and they're the embodiment, of Baker Mayfield. Like that team just molded around him and all took on, that similar mentality. And they're a tough team to play. Whether we say they're good, whether we say they're bad, whether they're, 9-18 for the next 3 or 4 years with Baker Mayfield, that doesn't matter. They're going to be a tough team to play, I think, any year and every year.
I agree and have the Eagles picking up the victory there in Tampa. And again, I think Baker Mayfield got his contract and he's going to come back down to, being Baker Mayfield. They give Mike Evans a big deal. They have Chris Godwin. They still have weapons on that offense. But I think just they're a little older and the Eagles are going to be faster. So I have the Eagles picking up the W. And they'll go into the bye at 3-1. They come out of the bye at home against the Cleveland Browns. And what's your prediction?
I got us taking a W here. I thought hard about this. This is one of the ones that I think could ultimately end up going either way and shifting shifted my prediction, but I got us getting the W against the Cleveland Browns. And I think it kind of more stands on the fact that I haven't seen enough from this offense. I haven't seen enough from Deshaun Watson. I haven't been able to buy into it. I think the defense is going to be good. I think this is going to be a defensive game, lower scoring game. But I just haven't been bought in enough to the offense to believe that the Browns are going to be able to outplay the Eagles in a defensive battle.
I actually have the Eagles taking an L here. So we finally have our first different one. It's defensive player of the year nominee. What the heck? Blanking on his name. Thank you, Myles Garrett. They do have their defense is good, and Jim Schwartz, he's going to bring it. He is going to bring it for the Browns. They also signed, I think, Michael Kendricks, former Eagle. So, having him come back to Philly. Deshaun Watson, he's always give or take. You never know what you're going to get from him. And I think the Eagles will keep it. It'll be a close game, but I have the Browns coming away with the W. So I have the Eagles at 3-2 after 5 games, and you have the Eagles at 4-1. First division matchup against the New York Giants on the road. Saquon Barkley's return to MetLife. I have the Eagles taking a W picking up the W against the Giants. I think it's going to be a blowout. I think Saquon's going to have 150 plus all-purpose yards, and they're going to make life miserable for Daniel Jones that day.
I agree. I mean, I gave you my little blurb about the Giants when we talked about the Week 18 matchup. They're not there. They're not ready. They got a lot more work to do. And the fact that quarterback is one of the biggest needs is what's going to hold that offense back from being able to score against most defenses and being able to help out a defense that isn't the worst. The Giants aren't the worst. They got Brian Burns. They made a decent draft pick of Tyler Nubin. He was one of my favorite safeties. They made some good moves, but I mean, at the end of the day, it still falls back on the offense isn't going to be good. It's going to be really bad. I think Saquon Barkley is going to have a great day and show them that he is worth every bit of that $12 million per year that the Giants should have given him or should have offered him to pair with Malik Nabers.
I agree. So I have the Eagles at 4-2. You have the Eagles at 5-1 after Week 7. Then they go to Cincinnati against Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and the Cincinnati Bengals. I actually have the Eagles taking an L here. And this is obviously this dependent on Joe Burrow being healthy, and I think he will be healthy. It's going to be a great game, I think. But I have a feeling that the Eagles are going to have a tough time stopping Jamar Chase, unfortunately, and the Bengals are going to get the victory at home.
Yeah, I mean, I love Darius Slay and I love Kenyon Mitchell. I think Kenyon Mitchell, I mean, there's going to be he's a great pick. He's going to be a very good player. But I think there will be growing pains through the rookie season. I don't think he's like, some people think, he could be like Sauce Gardner, come in and just take over right away as a CB1. I don't necessarily see that with Kenyon Mitchell right away. He's going to be playing a much higher level of competition than he was used to playing in college football. But I mean, he did dominate that lower level of competition. So no disrespect there, but I have them taking the L here as well. I think it's going to be a tough matchup for this defense. I finally give them a second L. I gave them a nice ride here, but it's definitely going to be a tough matchup against the Cincinnati Bengals. And you're coming off of the game, a win, I think a tough fought win against the Browns. I think you might get the blowout against the Giants, and then you might be coming in a little overconfident, and this is where you kind of get caught in your ways, I think, against the Bengals.
All right, Week 9 against Jacksonville, back at home on Sunday Night Football. I have the Eagles picking up the W against Dougie P and Trevor Lawrence and Jacksonville. What about you?
Yeah, I got W as well. I don't think Jacksonville got better than they were last year, so I think the Eagles could definitely get that W for sure.
All right, then they go to their second NFC East matchup on the road in Big D against Dallas. What are your thoughts on the game?
I got the loss here. I got your typical, they're going to take the W at home. We're going to take the W at home. So there's my preview for my Week 17 prediction.
Agreed. Pretty much the same reason. Back-to-back NFC East matchups at home against the new look Washington Commanders. Your prediction?
So I have them.
This is Thursday night. This is Thursday night football too. So short week.
I have them taking the W here, but I have them split them with Washington this year too. So preview of week 16 for
Okay.
everybody. But I think this could easily flip. They be in Thursday night football, be in the Washington Commanders. I mean, who knows what the Washington Commanders are going to look like? You're going to get a really good idea of is Jaden Daniels a man by week 11. You're probably going to be starting to really see how this Commanders team plays and molds. And I got the W here, but I could see it being a couple L's back to back against division foes here.
I also have the Eagles winning that game, short week. But again, there's going to be Washington for some reason is always a tough matchup. They can be really bad, and yet it's always tough. But I think the Eagles are going to win the game in Philly. Then they get a little mini bye week, and then they get Sunday Night Football in LA against the Rams. Who you got winning?
Against the LA Rams, I have us taking the W. I think it's going to be close, but I have a W there. It's going to be a close game.
I also have the Eagles picking up the W, and again, a close game. Eagles always match up. Eagles and Rams usually match up pretty similar build. It should be a good game. December 1st in Baltimore against the Ravens. I have the Eagles taking an L. It should be a good game. But I have Lamar Jackson coming away with the victory over Jalen Hurts and the Philadelphia Eagles in week 13.
Yeah, I have them taking the L here too. I think these AFC North matchups are going to be really tough. I think it's one of the best divisions in football. And I mean, no matter what you think about the Steelers, they always make it to 9-8, which helps make that division that much better and that much tougher. But yeah, I got an L against the Ravens, an L against the Bengals. I have the W against the Browns, but I could see them losing that game too. Those are going to be some tough matchups. That AFC North is built to go to war.
Definitely is. It could be potentially the best division in football, like you mentioned. So definitely good battles there. Week 14 against Carolina, and this is my preview. This is where I have the Eagles getting hot at the right time. They're gonna get the W against Carolina pretty easily, and I don't think Jalen Hurts plays in the fourth quarter.
I agree. I think this is just going to be a blowout. It's going to be similar to the New York Giants game of week 7. I think it's just going to be an outright blowout. I think the Giants and Panthers are almost on a similar level. I can see the Giants only winning 2 or 3 this year, and I can also see Carolina only winning 2 or 3 this year. So they're not good football teams.
Week 15, the Pittsburgh cross-state rivals, the Pittsburgh Steelers come to town. Again, I mentioned before, and it'll be mentioned again when we get to that week. Steelers have never won a game in Philadelphia. I have the Eagles picking up a W against Mike Tomlin, Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, whoever's playing quarterback for them, and the Steelers.
Yeah, I mean the Steelers are a tough team to play. They have a good defense. They have a ton of question marks on that offense. I think the receivers got worse with Deontay Johnson going out, and Roman Wilson kind of coming in as a replacement, and George Pickens being the guy. And whether you roll out Russell Wilson or whether you roll out Justin Fields, you see all the commentary that's been said about Justin Fields. I don't know if he's going to be the answer for any NFL team. I think he's going to be, a journeyman, and this is the beginning of his journey to many football teams for the rest of his NFL career. And then Russell Wilson, do we give Russell Wilson of past years? Do we give Russell Wilson of the most recent years that are ingrained in our mind? I don't know, but no matter who it is,
Arthur Smith is his offensive coordinator.
That should speak volumes alone. That Arthur Smith is. We saw him with Nathaniel Hackett, who was equally terrible to Arthur Smith. So I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see. I think they got worse on so many levels on the offensive side of the football, where they think they're taking a shot on some guys and hoping that they get better. I think they're going to get worse, but still finish 9-8.
Yeah, probably so. And then the Eagles jump on a train week 16, head to DC to face the Commanders. And I think you already kind of prefaced this. You have the Eagles taking an L.
Yes, I have an opportune L because I think it's going to make things very close at the top of the division.
I have the Eagles actually winning that game against the Commanders. And then week 17 in Philly against Dallas, I have the Eagles taking a W, and you also have the Eagles taking a W.
Correct.
And then they finish off the season. They finished the season with 3 straight division games. the Giants are not coming to Philly and winning. I have the Eagles taking the W.
Yeah, I have them taking a W. I mean, again, it's probably all going to come down to, are we playing for something? Because if we're playing for nothing and the second and third stringers are playing, the Giants could get their, their big hurrah and get a W. One of their, maybe 3 or 4 that they're going to get this year. But I give them the W right now. But if we're resting players, I can see it becoming an L.
If we're resting players, we're still better.
I think our backups are far better than the Giants starters for the most part. So I agree.
So we both have the Eagles at 12-5. The common games, we both have them taking L's to the Packers, to the Bengals, to the Cowboys, and to the Ravens. You have your 5th L against on the road against the Commanders, and then my 5th L is at home against the Browns. 12-5, is 12-5 good enough to win the NFC East?
I think so. I need to go through and do my full, check each schedule and do my predictions for each team. I think it could be enough because, to me, Dallas doesn't look like, I don't think Dallas is a 13-4 team. And then it all comes down to the tiebreaker. But I don't think they're a 13-4 team. I don't think that the Eagles are a 13-4 or a 14-3 team either. I see a lot of people call them for 14-3, and some have been 15-2. I don't see us that high. And this was similar to what we said last year. And then obviously last year, no one could have predicted the collapse that happened. But we both said it when we were doing our schedules. A lot of people get really hyped up because Howie has a really good offseason and everybody thinks we're going to be the next team that goes undefeated or only loses 1 or 2 games, where we know the Eagles aren't that type of team. They always make us sweat a little bit. So I think 12-5 is going to be enough. Big question mark. Is it going to require a tiebreaker? That I'll have to do my cross-reference and the predictions.
Dallas is about an 11-12 win team. I have the Eagles 5-1 in the division. You have the Eagles 4-2 in the division. So obviously it can come down to that tiebreaker if they split.
I just hope I'd prefer to be 11-5 and then be 10-6 come that week 17 game. When we hit week 17, we get the dub to go to 11-5 and they get the L to go to 10-6, because that would make me feel a lot better about week 18 and the ability to just bury the Giants in the first half and walk away with the division. But I don't like having tiebreakers, especially in this division, because it just has a way of throwing wrenches at you, especially because the Commanders, to me, are a wild card. They could be a team. They could be a team crazy enough that could get to 10 or 11 wins. Is Jayden Daniels the answer? Can he take you right away? Because he has to he could have a week or two where it's a bit bumpy, but in the NFC East, he's got to get his feet under him really quickly. But they're
Who's
a wild
better,
card.
Drake May or Jayden Daniel?
Are we taking opportunity or where they got drafted into effect, or are we just talking purely talent-wise?
Washington took Daniels before May, but if you were Washington, who would you have taken?
I personally prefer Drake May to Jayden Daniels, but there's a lot of people who love, and the NFL has gone this way where it's a lot more about athletes. I know the guy who does the relative athletic score was pointing it out that more than ever, the top guys in their relative athletic score, the RAS system, more of them are going higher in the draft than ever before. So teams are just going for athletes more than taking a chance on someone who may not be an athlete just because of how fast the NFL is now. But I prefer Drake May to Jayden Daniels personally.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens also around the league with Caleb Williams in Chicago. Just to see some of these younger draft picks, and obviously with the Eagles, what the roster looks like right now, definitely won't be the roster week 1 in Brazil.
No, definitely not. There's going to be a lot of changes, and we have our prediction show. The week, I think we usually do it the week before the season starts, and we'll revisit this because if Jordan Love goes down with an ACL tear, or Kirk Cousins, they have Michael Penix, the overall pick waiting in the wings. But if something happens, some injuries happen with some of these teams, major injuries, that could shift our records. But it usually doesn't shift much for me, and usually there isn't those major injuries that shift it through the offseason. So
yeah, there's still big names out there: Justin Simmons, There's talk of maybe like a Calais Campbell type.
We're definitely going to dive into we're going to get into episodes about, camp and our reaction to camp and camp rumors and the battles for positions. But I really think that we're not going to see another significant move from Howie unless Simmons' market just continues to flatline and he somehow gets in on a dirt cheap deal that he just can't say no to. But I don't see another move happening because our roster is loaded and they like a ton. Like you read about all these draft picks, somebody on the coaching staff loved this guy or that guy, or they want. So I think they want to give a lot of these guys an opportunity and don't want to take it away from a veteran, because they knew that through this offseason, they had to get younger. And they're starting to get younger and they're starting to get more pieces in play for the future of the Philadelphia Eagles versus, the Howie Roseman mentality and way of doing things, of keeping the vets around too long and making those plays like that, paying the veterans who maybe don't need to be paid and stuff. So they're definitely choosing a different mentality and listening to the coaches and listen to the coordinators and making some moves that were kind of in favor of them. So it'll definitely be a very interesting offseason. There's a lot of very intriguing position battles to watch.
Yep, and we will definitely talk about them as we get closer to training camp and we do our roster predictions. All right, so the Philadelphia, Connor and I both have the Eagles going 12-5. Will they go 12-5? You never know. They could potentially. Hopefully, they don't end the season 1-6 or whatever it was like they did last year. Thank you all for tuning in to the Kelly Green Hour. As always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LJHurl54. And follow Edge of Philly Sports on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook at Edge of Philly Sports. We appreciate everybody tuning in. Until next time, thank you for tuning in to the Kelly Green Hour.